All right, so this was submitted to me by, I'm so sorry, I don't know your name. I didn't record it off Facebook. But this is a great opportunity for me to really cover some landscape for you guys. I know landscape has been something that we haven't really covered a lot. Portraiture is really popular because it's one of the most difficult topics to deal with, especially with form and sculpture and sculpting, I mean, and then sculpting combined with color. All of that makes portraiture really, really difficult because on top of all the color and sculpting and form and light, we have anatomy, and so it makes everything even harder. When it comes to landscapes, it's really basic and architectural and straight. If you can't paint a body and you can't paint a face, and you start basically what I'm trying to say is painting a face is a lot easier than painting a landscape because there are less guides out there on how to paint a face versus how to paint a landscape. Landscape, there's guides on perspective, there's guides on size, scaling, color. There's all kinds of science guides on what happens with sunlight, certain levels of humidity, atmospheric fade. All of that is like mathematical. It's like if you're a 3D programmer, you can just turn on those buttons and it renders it for you. I know it's not that easy in 3D modeling, but forgive the metaphor. So that's why I really want to cover the basic list behind, if I can, if this piece here allows me, if it opens the doors for that kind of sort of exploration of landscape. But I'll try to cover the list as much as possible. There are some minor anatomy issues in here, and we'll see how much we can do. So, your concern when you sent me your, I also like it when you guys do this. When he sent me his image to critique, he kind of gave me a little paragraph of what he wanted me to focus on. I like that. Do give me a paragraph or two on what you guys are concerned about. And I think it's really important that you do that because it'll help you. It's a good opportunity. You got your getting your image critiqued. It's a good opportunity to sort of get what you want out of it. So it also guides me on what to do with the critique as well to be in your favor. The most important thing about establishing depth is understanding the rules of depth. What creates depth? What creates the feeling of distance on a 2D surface? So you know that you guys are limited to two dimensions of the canvas, and you're trying to emulate 3 dimensions. You're missing a dimension. You're missing 1 dimension, you're left with 2. This 2 dimension in it, and the way you draw inside this 2D constriction, you have to emulate a sense of 3-dimensional z-axis, the influence that it has on objects. One of these, if you guys want to write this down, one of these massive methods is in stacking and comparing different objects together. So we've got all these objects are the same size sitting on a horizon line. How do we express this distance? So we've got scaling as one of the methods that creates depth. So scaling, size difference. You definitely have this spot on in your painting. We have the detail difference. So detail here is much more. So if you got detail here and detail in the object in the distance, less detail, this also creates depth, even if the objects were the same size. Of course, that wouldn't really make sense if they were the same size. They'd look like they're sitting on the same plane, so it looks like an illusion. It's best to add scaling and the detail fade, but it can still technically work to attract more eye attention to the area that is mostly detailed. So we've got detail fade, we've got scale, and then we've got stacking, one object behind the other. That's another way to create depth, one object in front of the other. So imagine applying scale, stacking, and the detail depth all help to create even further exaggerated depth in the image, or rendered depth that reads immediately, which is very, very useful in painting. You also have this. You have this right here. You have this object in the foreground in front of this object, so this definitely creates the scope. Then you've got the horizontal line, so the grain. The grain over here is much more stacked than the grain in the foreground because the closer you get to the grain, the more of it you see. So basically what I mean is the further off into the horizon you look, the closer everything is to each other. What did I just say? This is really, really important that you guys are really taking all this in because it's just basically a gold mine. When I was younger, I used to wish that there was some sort of list out there available to me that I could apply to my landscape drawings because they always looked so flat and uninspired. So write what I just said back to me if any of you remember it. And then there's one more thing that you don't have. So you have all of these. You see the grain here? You see what he did? The grain here is much wider than the grains here. They're getting more and more stacked and less detailed as well. So he used the detail fade, more detail in the foreground, to establish depth. A lot more abstract. The brush stays pretty large. Detail is very minimal the closer you get to the background. The further away you look, the close things are to each other. Yes, it's a very general term. I don't remember the context. It means that the grains of anything, if it was a bark, if it was mostly in water and land, really, the patterns, the land patterns, they get closer to each other the further away you move, and further from each other the closer you move, or the closer they get to you. So the water ripples have a greater distance between them here, and then I guess a kilometer away or something like that, or 300 feet away or something, they are, it's not 300 feet, is it? Probably, they would look a lot closer together because the land is on a tilt and we are on top of the tilt as the human beings on it. So if you had a paper that you were looking at directly, let me erase all this crap. If you had a paper that you were looking at directly, just like this, and let's say it was perfectly squared. When you tilt this paper away from you, what happens is these squares become further from each other. They become, not further from it, they become larger. So these should pretty much look like they're smaller than these because this is a distance now. We've got point A and point B. This is the depth factor. This is another way to establish depth in grain. Don't forget that. All right. The one thing that you are missing, I don't know who what your name is. I'm so sorry. You should probably look it up because I don't want to sound like a rude jerk. One second. Your name is Sebastian. Okay. So your name is Sebastian. And Sebastian Zabelka, I won't forget it. One thing you're missing, Sebastian, is when you have objects that you're trying to illustrate depth, sometimes making them darker, all the time, making them darker, so a value fade also establishes depth. Meaning the foreground in landscapes is almost always darker. And let me show you a place where this is used in this industrial design and in concept art. Let me show you where this is used, and it's used so beautifully. And it's used by this amazing master artist that works for Disney, and he just blows my mind. He's amazing. So let me see if I can find his work to show you. Come on. Favorites. He drew the Rio. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But he drew that Rio widescreen kind of incoming storm type deal. Let me see if I can find it. I hope I do. Yes. Nathan Fawkes, that's his name. Fawkes. Okay. And this is that painting. Where is it? Rio. There it is. Beautiful use of this rule of depth. The scale, the value scale has dropped so much in the foreground and is so completely faded in the background. We also use this exact inversion of the detail, really low detail scope in the background. Very little, but it reads still. Then you see the grain closer to each other, so the lines on which the river is sitting are closer to each other than so these lines, these vertical lines, these distance lines are closer to each other in the distance. We see clouds stacking on a closer grain because everything is on that horizontal, that vertical kind of tilt where we're looking up at the ground, sort of. That's kind of what it feels like. We're looking up at the ground. Objects in the foreground, though they are really saturated to keep them interesting and keep them relative, so the closer the object is to you, the more detail you see, the more your eyes are exposed to the light those objects are tossing off. So less saturation out here, more pastel, more foggy, more saturation up here, less foggy, more detailed. But look at the blacks. All of the blacks are focused here, even though it's midday. All of the blacks are focused here because that created that amazing sense of depth and perspective. So that's pretty much what you've destroyed in your image. Your image is amazing. If anybody's noticed here, this is an amazing painting. But it was missing that one thing for me. So this is what we need to do. The illumination on her is excessive, to say the least. What we need to do is figure out how we can darken her, but keep the three-dimensional. So we don't want to darken her so much that she becomes flat. Can anyone tell me why an object becomes flat when we bring in too much darkness? Can anyone tell me? It's okay, Rikitty, you can stay a mod. If you don't want to be a mod, then I can remove you as well. I don't mind. Can anyone tell me why an object loses its depth when it has too much darkness on it? Alright, so it's a spherical object, and what we need to do is shade this as if it was a basic sphere. When our brush is largest, we have to start addressing the larger shades in an object, because black makes objects appear flat and we can't discern detail. Light equals form. Too much contrast, all of that is related. When there's too much black on an object, there is less of a chance to build up the value. So there is the height of the high point of the sphere. So the high point of her forehead is right here. This is pretty much the part that's closest to us of her entire head. And this is the part that probably sticks out the furthest, catching the light off that cast shadow. If it will even touch her, yeah, I don't think so. So we have to shade her as if we are working in really, really light grays. So the key here is, yes, you have to darken her, but doesn't mean you just get a brush and then just throw that black right over. I mean, it would be nice if we could do that, because look at how reestablished the depth has become because we removed that light interruption. But what we have to do is lower the opacity all the way and really build the darkness. See my opacity? I'm being really, really sensitive with it. And this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Anywhere else on her body, you want to make it feel like she's emerging from the background. That she is encased in the shadow of that cave. The environment came first before the object. What do I mean by that? Can anyone explain what I mean by that? Does anyone have any idea what I mean when I say the environment comes first and then the object? I'm going to sharpen the shoulder area. It's a little too fuzzy. I feel like you can afford a little bit of... Everything's on normal, right? Yeah. What means... I mean, if you use too much white, it also looks flat, doesn't it? Yes, Sarah Karis, absolutely. Sarah Chris. Yes, if you use too much white or too much black, there's no color that can exist, and color exists in grayscale, and there are no grayscales in black and white, and therefore no color or grayscale can exist in black and white, meaning no form can exist in black and white. The environment controls how much light affects the object, so the environment comes first. Exactly, we create a light environment that the object in that light environment has to respect. So what I'm doing right now is trying to make it seem like this object emerges. And this object has grooves on it. It's not a completely clean sphere, or else it would look really elementary to use that kind of just cleanliness on the face. So what happens is think about the light spots. Always think about the light spots when it comes to portraiture. They will carry your image. So this is what we need. We need to show where her cheekbones are highest. Cheekbones are a mountain. They cast a shadow of their own, so we have to draw that valley. And then the lips, and then the chin also has a little bit of light on it. And we're trying to create depth at this point. Always thinking about the light environment, making sure whatever lights we bring, we're not bringing them in to be too strong. So we're losing a lot of the form because some of the light is surrounding her near the back a little too much. That's fine, because she's emerging out of the darkness, and she's supposed to be respecting her dark environment, her shadow environment. I'm going to get a new layer and throw the darkness over. And it's okay if it's this dark, because what I'm going to do is going to get my eraser and erase only the high points of her body. So the high points of her breasts, her shoulders if they got any of that shadow. This breast more than the other one. And you can do this as many times as you want until it looks right. Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take lots and lots of layering. So I'm going to down my opacity one more time. And then erase away. Okay. You have a little bit of inconsistencies here in the form. So I'm just going to be painting over some stuff, just anatomy stuff that I'm going to be doing, because I don't know how to paint over unless I fix them. And what you were trying to say is in your paragraph when you sent me that request, you basically said you want to tell a story. A story is something that needs to be believed, right? You have to believe the story to accept the story, to really experience the story. Believability, sciences, the realism all helps with the story. It all helps you with that. So thinking about this physics first pushes the story, believe it or not. It's not separated from it. So think about the basic physics. This line you have here for the breast, this is a symbolic line. You don't need it because the breasts don't do that. They are just like low mass fat that isn't as tough as muscle, so they just do a little bit of a sag on the sides, but that's it. They don't really have a line. This is all symbolic remnants from your use of lines or when you used to draw bodies or whatever. I put a secondary light source. I cheated a little bit. That's fine because some of the form is going to be lost too much. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to jump into look 5 actually. And do the same thing on this breast. Throw a secondary light source. But this one is possibly coming off her arm. It's okay. Take down the shadows on either side here. Deviate away from the line as much as you possibly can. And I'm going to run over that shadow one more time. You see how we're slowly building up the form? We're really careful. So this isn't really the technique you guys should be using in your paintings because this is my critique technique. This isn't the technique you should be painting with. What you should be painting with is with this stuff in mind. I mean, if you want to correct your stuff, use the same shit I use, but basically don't always depend on the time when you can correct your work. Try to get all that tough stuff out of the way early. So think about it before you have to correct it and fix it. I guess that's really a stupid suggestion of me to say because if you don't know any better, you're just going to make the mistake. But still, try to keep in mind that, all these rules, they're just going to help guide you. That's what it all is at the end of the day. We make mistakes, and in making these mistakes and becoming aware of them, we don't make them consciously as we paint. And that's what makes a good painter. They know they can paint a shitty painting if they wanted to. I mean, if I want to, right now, I'm not the best artist in the world. I'm not saying I'm the best, but nowhere near the best. But if I wanted to, I can paint the shittiest thing in the world if I just don't think about it. And I'm probably gonna because I'm not planning. But when you plan, you really avoid all of that. You avoid repeating mistakes. So I'll show you the before and after in a second, and it's really going to match this so beautifully. Now she is in a cast shadow, and I'm going to throw this cast shadow over her body. Oopsie. Just like this, keeping it sharpest when it gets closer to her. You have a bit too much darkness over here. It's really interrupting the build. You have her torso starting a little bit late. I'll show you guys in one moment what's happened to this form. It's become really, really focused. One more touch on the head. Is anyone familiar with the pearl technique? Anyone aware of it? Yeah, her arm is pretty long. So what I'm doing is I'm just placing the whites only at the highest point of her head, maybe a little bit on her temple and on her forehead. No? I'll probably show you guys another day because it's quite lengthy. And because she is in such a state of shadow, we kind of don't want to make her the edge of her face too dulled out and blurry. I'm going to make the very outermost parts of her ear shiny. Only the parts that stick right out of that shadow. I'm going to have to zoom in. Stupid. I have no idea why that person is still here, but whatever. Why stay where you're not welcome? Okay. Just like this. So do you see what that's done? It's really worked to display where the form is exactly. We're thinking about form even in the most minimal object. On the most minimal object, we're thinking about where the light can sit. So everything becomes a form study. How many of you have been practicing your form studies? Beware, I am painting white on here, but I'm not choosing it to be so light it's kind of escaped. I'm trying to think about where the light is on her body. And a little bit of light, whoopsie, a little bit of shadow, I mean, right under the cheekbone. All right. And a little bit more work here to keep all of the forms that are emerging out of the shadow consistent in what they're displaying. The hand is a bit long, I don't have time to fix it. And because this has become a secondary light source right here, I have to illuminate it. The place is that dark. And what that has done is created a silhouette in her hand. The light has traveled through her hand in a subsurface scattering, so it's created a space between her fingers. Gonna sharpen that. Fuck. Okay. And then that light has, which you have done already, you've anticipated the secondary light source, that light has reflected on everything else. Just like this. I just need to soften that up. Some on the breast. Not much lighter actually, this is too much. Okay, let's do a quick before and after so we can see. It's kind of, that head is, it's not working for me. Every time I zoom out, I feel like I need to darken it more because the head is just emerging out of a really, really dark place. So it needs to be a little, she can't see the background right now. This thing is in the way. It's just her head that's kind of sticking out a little bit. She's trying to hide from her developers, I guess. She ran away. So yeah, you're really good with your storytelling. I definitely read what you're trying to write. She's like an android and she's trying to hide away from the I guess the surveyors that are trying to find her after she ran off. Before I do a before and after, I'm gonna, because the light is traveling this way, we need to represent that the light is that strong. So we need to bring in some of that green. And what happens when we are in a state of cast shadow, we have to cool down shadows. So we're going to get a green that's cooled down, but we don't go to purple to cool down the green. We go to the nearest friend to purple, which is blue. And so we have to choose a blue that's from down here on a color layer, and I'm going to cool down these shadows ever so slightly. Everything is going to have that level of purple to it. It's not purple though, but it's the nearest neighbor. Some of these units here will be just slightly sticking out their head, catching some light. Some of this grass over here might be doing the same. So let's do that. Hide. I'm using a dodge tool right now to do this. It saves me time. I don't recommend dependency on the dodge tool, however. I'm going to throw in some subsurface scattering on some of these leaves because the bottoms of them are getting the light. And I'm just going to zoom out and really throw in a beautiful illumination right along here. It's going to tie the piece together. I'm going to get that blue again and sort of close off the image with it. On color as well. Do you see what that blue has done? It has gotten closer to this purple. You've used green on purple. And I'm just going to use a blue over all that green because it's way too warm. What do I mean when I say you're using a warm green? Does anyone know? You warm up the green only where the sun touches it. You don't warm up green in the shadows. So what does a warm green look like? Can anyone tell me what a warm green looks like? This part of the tree is getting some of that sun. This tree shouldn't be so dark, so I'm going to get like a brown. And then with the color correction, an orange green. No, that's not what I mean, Lars. Smartass. Erase away some of that. I'm going to keep that purpley green brown color that I just added only over the shadows. I'm going to, with my adjustment layer, I'm just going to fix the contrast just a little bit. We need a little bit more contrast because this object is in the foreground. And one thing you've kind of misused a little bit is the fade. Remember the fade when I showed you guys there needs to be some fade for the background because, or like raising in the values. We need a little bit more of that because it's a touch too dark, almost as dark as the foreground. And that's kind of dangerous territory to mess around with because you're disrupting the entire depth map. It's closer to the warm colors, yellow and red, etc. Thank you, Glynis. Saturated with yellows, Brian. Closer to yellow, good job. I'm sorry about your computer problems, Crobet. I'm just going to sharpen out this. Have you guys tried to help him figure out exactly what's happening? Can't you join the stream if you restart PC? Yeah, that's true. Hi, King Zor. Okay, so before, after. The distance feels more distant, right? Why is that? Why does it feel more distant? Kind of just adjusting it just a little bit to keep the image framed. Oh, you know how to fix it. Can anyone tell me why it feels more distant? Have you tried going to your Wacom preferences and clearing them? We go to atmospheric distance. What is that? What is happening with atmospheric distance? Merging this down. Can't show the before and after just yet. I will in a second. Just want to exaggerate a little bit more. Play around with some color. I'll be here till you guys answer. I love, love, love when you guys send me finished pieces like this. It really, I have to add some shine to her texture because she is an android, so she's probably created from more reflective, less mattified material than skin. My eye is always on this navigator, by the way, guys. Don't forget this. Don't forget the importance of your navigator. It's your best friend. It helps you decide the size of the brush. It helps you see whether or not your recent brushstroke has affected everything. It's a really great tool. The blacks become grays, the colors become less saturated. Thank you, Ox. Perfect answer. Because there's atmosphere between our eyes and the object in the distance. Excellent, McDeputy. That's how it happens, and Ox covered what happens. So what happens is the values drop, saturation drops. Because less, I guess not less light, it's not the light that's the problem, it's our eyes. They are seeing less light. When our eyes are exposed to less light, they don't have enough light to really see the color or really see the contrast or really see the values. Imagine if we had 100% functional eyes, meaning they don't deteriorate over time, they never have a distance blur. They are eyes that don't have any atmospheric fade to them, meaning they have such high res, they're like 1080p eyes. That's not true because we have more than 1080p in real life. But what I mean is if our eyes were 100% like they never deteriorated, we'd just become overwhelmed with the amount of detail we saw. We'd probably all just kill ourselves because it'd just be too much detail. So it's kind of a mercy and kind of a grace really that we have eyes that are susceptible to this, I guess like low distance render. And that's kind of what happens. Why it happens, as someone covered, McDeputy, I think, or was it, who covered it? But anyways, it's the atmosphere. The atmosphere and the distance are in the way between us and this distant object, causing this value lift and desaturation. Istebrak, you can also check in histogram the levels of the colors so you can have different contrast levels between foreground, background, etc. Yes, this is true. You wouldn't be able to see anything because you would see everything. It would blur into infinity. Yes, Lars. Okay, so everyone ready for the big reveal? I'm almost kind of just done touching it up. Beautiful job on these textures. I don't know if you used texture overlay or what you used exactly, but it's just wonderful. I'm adding some more glow or shine. You can add this as well. I'm just going to get my soft brush on really, really low and just add a very delicate glow, just coming right off the, I'm going to put it on color dodge. Just coming right off the grass. Just like a really delicate edge glow. Right over here on color dodge, and I'm going to shrink my opacity like way low. Like actually I'm just going to put it on 1%, and I'm going to bring in that ray of light that's illuminating everything. So remember, the air has color. The air has a color to it. Can anybody explain what this means? So I can't explain it to you guys. I want you guys to sort of get it. I'm going to choose the exact color of the light source and color the air. This is what I mean when I say paint the air. It's not just God rays. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about the actual color of that specific atmosphere, all of the green bouncing back up, changing the color of the grass. This foreground is still dark because the light isn't on it. This is still dark. This is still dark. These lower areas are in the way, casting some shadows, so they're a bit dark. Kind of like the particles of everything just coming together and inheriting the color of the, where's that color dodge layer of the atmosphere. Need to keep the foreground dark though, so be careful with what you're illuminating exactly. Okay. Because the reason why I'm assuming there's so much sun is because all this water is reaching the whites. So this means that there's enough sun out there to really saturate this water right here. What you can really do, and I'm kind of just having too much fun at this point, is throw a cast shadow from one of the trees. Oh baby. It's just going to look too pretty. Fuck. Just kind of taking the tilt. Not color burn, multiply. Thanks very much. Just kind of cast over. just like this. Needs more lens flare. Water vapor is reflecting the light source. Did I ask what does it mean when the air has taken a color? No one has answered that question. Answer the freaking question. It's a really important little thing. I'm going to blur this, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, just to save some time. Particles. Is air not particles? So yes, particles are definitely the reason. I kind of don't want to interrupt that pretty beam of light, but I do want to throw in a cast shadow. I'm just not sure where I want to throw it. Oh yes. Oh baby, yes, right there. I'm sorry. It's just so good. It's so good. I'm sorry. I love cast shadows. They're like my hobby. Damn, I just fangirled all over the place. Okay. I guess that's good enough. I feel like this piece gives off tension, danger feel because of the composition. It feels like looking through the inside of a narrow tunnel, but from a story perspective, I feel it's missing some tension. Those red sparkles in the water aren't scary enough or even giving enough focus. That's true. I feel like if it had more focus, it would give the piece more danger. The story would be more clear. Just my 2 cents. Good 2 cents. Valuable 2 cents. That's a Canadian 2 cents. I mean, American 2 cents, not a Canadian 2 cents. Not that the Canadians have sense anywhere. Let's see if anyone is asking. No, I'm not, Pixie. Don't say that. Bad. Bad, Pixie. Okay. Flatten the image. Let's see what we can do about these fellas over here. I am going to... The reason why they don't feel so dangerous is because the color isn't dark enough. What we want to show is a more menacing red. And this pink here is too forgiving. So I'm just going to throw... Oopsie. I'm going to throw a very solid kind of red color coming in. And this might bring the necessary amount of danger we need. Does this not feel more dangerous to you guys? The color of the water would also change. And we've got the red versus the green, so this is like the evil complementary tone, and this is the delicate, she's surrounded by the greens, and that's sort of like the friendly nature kind of deal we've got going on. So do you guys feel the danger levels off of that, or does it need more danger? I'm going to bring in some more yellows. You might need some more detail over here because it's one of the lit areas. This might very well do it, but I'm not 100% sure. You might need some of that bark detail. A little bit up here. Just a touch, just on the bits that are facing the Istebrak, could you cover the large, medium, small? Seems a lot of so the same shapes are repeated in a boring way. Still awesome picture though. Hashtag. Sure, I can cover that as well. Thank you for asking. Okay. I laugh in the face of danger. We need more danger. Welcome to the danger zone. Danger in a can. Hover over the video, it should be there. Danger, danger, high voltage. Alright, you guys are just ridiculous right now. I'm just gonna saturate some areas and call it a day. Okay, so what Lars meant, what Storyteller meant, sorry Lars, gave away your identity, you should move now and change your name, is the repetition of these large shapes. So what we want to do in a composition is we want to vary the sizes of the shapes. So before we start, we want to say, I'm going to use 2 large pieces. I'm going to use 2 of these pieces that sum up into 1 of these pieces. And I'm going to break these pieces into 3 and this into 2 pieces. this to this, and this to this. And this is exactly how I want to organize my image. Whatever it ends up being, a portrait, the portrait could be the head, and this could be the neck, this could be the dress. I mean, this could be the dress, this could be the hand detail, and this could be all of the accessories. Whatever it is, you always want to build down. If all of the features of the portrait that you were drawing were just block, 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 detail hover, random weird color that doesn't match the concept or the palette, detail hover, not even like one drop of detail, maybe one drop, massive, massive detail and contrast and holy shit, and then massive, 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 massive detail in the hair painted with one tiny little brush stroke for all of the hair. This is how most of you draw. And when you think about the scale descending down, the sizes of the objects descending down, it also focuses your detail better. It focuses your composition better. It focuses your composition better, and it really helps to bring the image together. Helps you organize your image more effectively. I need some contrast over here and some cast shadow. Sorry, I got distracted. Give me a second. So if we apply that rule to this image, what happens is we notice sort of that you've used kind of the same shape over and over again. Give me a sec. Let me just cast the shadow. And what we want to do, compose and compose. What we want to do is kind of divide these pieces together. So what you have, it's kind of making the image a little boring, Sebastian, is this size, this object is nearly the same size and shape as this object. Maybe you could have broken this object into two. Or, you know, something like, I really don't know, something like that. Maybe a broken tree stump. This object is nearly the same size as this object, so you could have made this one massive boulder just sitting over here. And this would be the illuminated side, and this would be the darkened side. All of the leaves are nearly the same size. That's also created a detail. This is because you use the same stamp brush. So this has created a detail congestion. And detail congestion is never good. You want to focus all of the small sizes in areas that matter. So pretty much the focal point is right here. This is the focal point. Everything else should be a grade less. So these leaves should not be so heavy, and these leaves should not be so detailed and heavy. Try to make them a little bit more abstracted and a little bit more impressionist. And other than all of that, let's look at the before and after. Filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Just so I bring out the detail that we lost. Everybody ready? Bracelet up applies the box challenge. Poof kaboom equals Emmanuel. Glynis. Okay, anyways, before, after. When you think about lighting and how the light atmosphere and the light environment affects your image, when you think about cast shadows and objects standing in that open space of light sources, when you think of saturation and the depth scope that I showed you guys, so stacking, detail, shrinking the contrast, decreasing the contrast, keeping the foreground dark, keeping the background light and high in value and low in saturation, continuing the story mode, making sure that you are creating a good attention, so your composition is really successful. We really feel the danger after we oversaturated here. This is a good direction, but you had your character a bit too overlit, and the background and the foreground weren't really separated. This, however, this landscape can exist. It does look good. It does have a past. This is great. These are all just suggestions. But remember that this kind of environment isn't like if you're a photographer and you had a choice between a swamp that had a little bit of sunlight coming through and a swamp that was on an overcast day. You as the photographer, which day would you choose? If you really want to showcase your ability to capture light and show off the light and mess around and choose that perfect angle where you see just a little bit of the God ray, not the God ray, but like the light, the particles traveling through the light ray. Of course you would choose the day with the sunlight in it because it's going to have patches of super saturated moss and patches of really low saturated moss, and you're going to have that juxtaposition and that contrast. Not juxtaposition, fuck that word. That contrast. So that's what you were missing. You were missing light in the swamp. And light in the swamp makes it that much more atmospheric. Also, form studies, knowledge of objects standing in the way of other objects really helps you cast those successful shadows. Form studies also help you develop a knowledge of the essential form, the essential shape underneath here. This is kind of like a diamond shape. And so what we're getting, look, I fucked it up. What we're getting here is knowledge that this area has to be preserved as the shadow, and this area is completely exposed. If this was a form study, I'd leave this area really, really lit. That was the environment that I'm talking. That's the environment that I'm talking about. Areas that look up, get that immediate, beautiful ray of sunlight. That's the sunlight that is the hope. I guess you can translate it as in the narrative that's traveling and almost promising this girl that she'll get it, that she'll get out of there, and giving us hope as the viewers that she'll get out. And these guys stay over there in the murky, non-lit up, non-happy, purple, non-green, complementary red, opposing red background that needs to be the complete opposite of this area. I would even go and darken this up just a little bit because this area is still in the foreground. It's not mid-ground. The tree is not mid-ground, by the way, guys. The tree needs definitely some depth to it. Maybe that'll help. I don't know if you guys see it or not. Here, I can do something real quick. Just give me a sec just so I can make this more appealing. Just so that it can get some darkness to it. So yeah, if you did want to put anything in the midground, it would have to be somewhere over here. This is midground, this is foreground, this is background. So they are technically in the midground. They should have some level of detail on them if you ever plan on that. See how much more kind of the grain is messed up though. Excuse me. Where's down? So before, after. There's some areas I'm just editing very slightly. I could just sit here for hours. I love finished pieces. I love seeing like what I could do with them and experimenting with my own limitations and stuff. Learning from other artists as well is an amazing tool. Let's see, any questions? I have a drawing I did a few months ago and I tried fixing it yesterday, thinking about what I learned here, but epic, meh, not sure it worked. I was kind of happy with my own before and after, but something is definitely off, several somethings actually. Pixie, please send it to me on Facebook so I can take a look at it next class. I agree, toss some bad boy purple nipples in there and this is a wrap. What? My thoughts exactly. Marlon. That tree trying to sneak into the midground. Psh. Yeah, get that bitch back in order. Every time I see the before and after. Very nice emote there, Ox. Delicious. Okay. Whenever I look away for the comments and I look back, I find something else I kind of want to add to a little bit. And then keep that on a nice sharp cast. As if the leaves themselves are, oopsie, casting a shadow on each other. Yeah, perfect. Before, after. You tell stories through light. Light is the best tool to tell stories with. And just because I know she's important to you. I know this android, you spent time on her, but doesn't mean she's so important she disrupts the light behavior and the light environment. It's okay, she'll still be important to us. She's still someone who's hiding, a delicate creature that's hiding from the hunter. Of course, she's going to be important to us. We will read that, trust us to. Don't over-highlight her just to make her the focus. Don't throw a fundamental over something secondary. The primary, most important rule is, of course, the primary light source. Fox News mad now. They best storyteller ever. I have an announcement to make. I have a website now, an official website. So if you write www.istebrak.com, ta-da! Okay, wow, loaded, not on point. But all my gallery is here, and information about private tutoring. The class books are also here. And the information about the free critique hour. This is just still new. We got it yesterday and we're still working on it. I'm going to have my poetry in here as well because I am a writer and I do write. What else? I'm going to be bringing in more information in the free critique hour. There's going to be befores and afters, my recent before and afters, including today's. Before and afters from my the critique hour that we do now. Website to do? Yes. And one's from private tutoring. The private tutoring prices are available here. And then you guys, if you are curious about applying for private tutoring, there's a form that you can write. There's also going to be a commission inquiry on the bottom of my gallery, just around here somewhere. I haven't had time, probably going to have time today after this class. What else, Mang? That's it. It's a bit pricey, but I'm going to just do it because I know we need a website soon. I'm really very happy that I finally got one. We had the Wix one just as a placeholder. But it's really fun putting one together, and it kind of makes me feel so official. Like, it makes me feel so like, some sort of big shot, and I'm just like, oh my god, I have a website, oh my god. Like, I have to look at myself in a certain way in the mirror now. Maybe spend like a minute extra in front of the mirror, I'm joking. It's just a more organized website that I'm going to base everything off of, so whenever at the end of the class, instead of linking you like 1,000 links, I'm probably just going to tell you guys to go to my website. I don't know where. I don't think we have them. I'm probably going to put them down here somewhere. The social media outlet links, because that's where I announce everything. So until I do that, I am going to just post the links here. Alright, so stick around because there's links. If you guys want to watch this critique again, if you want to learn exactly everything that I taught about depth, it will be posted on YouTube for those who missed the beginning of it, and for those who missed it, period. The Google community is a really, really important community that I've formed. For those who haven't joined it yet, please join it, because that is where we stay in dialogue in between the critique hours. There is Twitter. I post on Twitter announcement. So if you're a Twitter goer, you'll get the announcement there. I post on DeviantArt, which is a journal or whatever. You guys can send me your stuff to look at on DeviantArt as well. I post on Facebook. And the class website is www.istebrak.com. 10 years ago, if you told me I'd get a website called istebrak.com, I wouldn't have believed you. Such a fucking weird name. I know, Glynis, the background of my background of my website is white. I just wanted to keep it clean, I just had to keep it clean. I just wanted to make it white, and not that any other color is dirty. It's just, nondescript. God damn it. Here come the Tumblr warriors. So what else is there? Oh, okay. If you want to support the class financially, you can scroll down on the Twitch page and you guys can get the button there. If you feel like it's not necessary, you don't have to pay for this class, but it's just an option for those who want to support the class in that way. There are also class books on the website, if you guys go to it, available for you if you want to purchase them. If some have asked me what the books are about, I always point to them, but I never talk about them. This is my recent one, Figure Drawing for the Growing Artist. If you're taking figure drawing on now and you want some sort of introductory into the world of figure drawing, what you have to think about, all the fundamentals, etc., this is a small little booklet I've written, a guidebook sort of, both are guidebooks on what to think about. It's basically everything that I teach but in written form. And a guide to professionalism is just that, how to keep your mind set around being an illustrator and a concept artist, how to work, what to think about, the fundamentals, just a really, really quick introduction. And buying these also supports the class and keeps it free and keeps them available all the time. And that's it. Thanks everyone for coming, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. Oh, and next class is going to be on Tuesday the 13th. Bye-bye, guys.